So you want to buy a newspaper company. It sounds like a romantic dream, doesn't it? You imagine yourself walking through a bustling historic newsroom. The air smells of fresh ink and hot lid. Brave, caffeinated journalists are screaming into landline phones, chasing down the story of the century. You are the noble gatekeeper of truth, the defender of democracy, the classical publisher. But then you wake up. You look at the balance sheets and reality hits you like a bucket of ice water. The printing presses are rusted. The delivery trucks are falling apart. The advertisers fled to Google and Facebook over a decade ago, and they are never coming back. Every single morning, your bank account bleeds tens of thousands of dollars just to keep the lights on. It is a financial disaster, a black hole for capital, a business model so broken that any traditional venture capitalist would laugh you out of the room. Yet some of the absolute wealthiest human beings on the planet, men who made their fortunes through ruthless efficiency and obsessive mathematical optimization, are standing in line, checkbooks in hand, waiting for their turn to buy these dying assets. Why would a man who built a trillion-dollar e-commerce empire, or a hedge fund manager who calculates risk down to the microsecond, willingly throw hundreds of millions of dollars into a sinking ship? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how the world's most powerful elites use these failing paper kingdoms to build an invisible, unbreakable shield around their fortunes, and how a business that loses millions on paper can make its owner billions in the shadows. To understand this paradox, we have to look at the sheer cost of entering this dying playground. If you want to buy a newspaper today, you aren't paying for the physical assets. You are buying legacy. Let's break down the pricing tiers of this bizarre market. At the lower end, you have the regional daily papers. These are the voices of medium-sized cities struggling to survive. You can pick one of these up for a relatively modest $5 to $15 million. It sounds cheap, almost reasonable for a multimillionaire looking for a local vanity project. But the moment you sign the papers, you realize you didn't just buy an office building. You bought a mountain of legacy debt, pension liabilities for hundreds of retired workers, and an audience that is quite literally dying of old age. Now step back for a second and look at the mega-scale tier. We are talking about the crown jewels of journalism. The Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, the Boston Globe. These aren't just businesses, they are national institutions. When a tech titan stepped up to buy the Washington Post, the price tag was $250 million in cash. To an ordinary person, that is an astronomical sum. To him, it was less than 1% of his net worth at the time. It was pocket change. But here is the strange part. The transaction itself is the easy part. The real price of entry is the invisible, crushing operational cost that follows. You have to immediately invest tens of millions more just to modernize the archaic technology stack. You have to hire expensive software engineers to build proprietary publishing platforms. And then you face the geopolitical hurdles. The moment a billionaire buys a national newspaper, Congress starts looking at them with a magnifying glass. Competitors accuse them of buying a propaganda machine. Regulatory bodies begin examining their other, much larger businesses. It is a high-stakes, highly scrutinized headache. So why pay this price? What is the hidden mechanism that makes this agonizing investment worth every single penny? To find the answer, we have to look at how these companies actually make profit, or rather, how they redefine the very concept of profit. Let's use a simple analogy. Imagine you own a massive industrial bakery. This bakery produces 99% of your wealth. It makes you billions of dollars every single year. But there is a catch. The local government is constantly threatened by public health advocates who want to regulate your sugar usage, which would absolutely destroy your profit margins. Now imagine there is a small, struggling local newsletter that everyone in the town council reads every morning over breakfast. It loses money every day, but you decide to buy that newsletter anyway. You don't buy it to sell advertisements for your bread. You buy it because suddenly the people writing the daily articles, the ones the regulators read, are on your payroll. You don't even have to tell them what to write. Just the mere fact of your ownership changes the entire atmospheric pressure around how your bakery is discussed. This is the concept of narrative insurance. In the cold, hard, data-driven reality of the elite, the newspaper is not a money-making asset. It is a loss leader. It is a strategic shield designed to protect the primary engine of your wealth. If your primary business is an e-commerce monopoly facing massive antitrust investigations, or a real estate empire dependent on favorable tax laws, owning the primary publication in the nation's capital is the ultimate insurance policy. It gives you a seat at the table. It gives you leverage. When politicians know that you control the ink that can write their political obituary, they tend to think twice before dragging your main company into a congressional hearing. The traditional business model of selling subscriptions and print ads is dead. The modern, elite media model is about buying influence, reputation, and access. It is a transaction where you trade liquid cash for solid power. This brings us to the operational psychology of engineered immersion. How do you design an asset to maximize this specific kind of non-monetary profit? First, you restructure the newsroom. You don't try to make it profitable by cutting investigative journalism. You do the exact opposite. You fund high-impact, award-winning investigations. Why? Because credibility is your only currency. If the newspaper becomes a blatant, cheap mouthpiece for its owner, it loses all its power. The public will see right through it, and more importantly, the elites will stop reading it. To make the shield work, the newspaper must remain highly respected. It must win Pulitzer Prizes. It must retain its elite status. The secret industry trick is to keep the journalists fiercely independent on 99% of the stories. You let them tear down corrupt politicians, investigate corporate greed, and expose local scandals. This builds an absolute fortress of public trust around the brand. But then, there is that remaining 1%. The highly specific, systemic issues that directly impact the owner's multi-billion-dollar empire. You don't need to censor articles. You don't need to send angry emails to the editor-in-chief. The bias is far more subtle, far more elegant. It is built into the hiring process. It is built into the culture. Editorial teams naturally, almost unconsciously, align their worldview with the general interest of the person who signs their paychecks. It is a beautifully designed system of self-censorship and strategic framing. The writers feel completely free, the public feels completely informed, and the billionaire owner remains completely protected. But do not mistake this for an easy game. If this strategy is so powerful, why do billionaires still fail at it so spectacularly? The truth is, playing with legacy media is like playing with highly volatile explosives. If you handle it incorrectly, it will blow up in your face, ruin your reputation, and drain your bank account faster than you can imagine. Take our first real-world case study. A high-profile real estate mogul and investor bought a major metro daily paper, thinking he could run it like a ruthless, efficiency-obsessed corporation. His first mistake was applying standard corporate restructuring to a creative house. He cut staff, slashed budgets, and demanded that journalists write clickbait to drive digital ad revenue. The result? The brand's credibility collapsed overnight. The top-tier journalists quit in protest. The readers felt insulted and canceled their subscriptions. The paper became a hollow shell of its former self, losing its influence entirely. He was forced to sell it at a massive, humiliating loss, his reputation permanently tarnished as the man who killed a local treasure. Then, look at our second case study, where a billionaire tech investor tried to force a rapid, aggressive transition to a pure digital, video-first format. His mistake was failing to understand his target market. He believed that traditional, long-form investigative readers could easily be replaced by younger, short-form video consumers. He spent tens of millions of dollars building state-of-the-art video studios and laying off veteran print reporters. But the younger demographic didn't care about the legacy brand, and the older, loyal subscribers hated the new format. The company burned through its capital reserves in less than 2 years and was forced into a painful, quiet bankruptcy. These men forgot the golden rule of this playground. You cannot treat a historic newspaper like a software startup or a real estate portfolio. If you strip away its soul in search of a quick profit, you destroy the very shield you bought it for in the first place. So let us run the ultimate financial simulation to see how the numbers actually stack up at the highest level of this game. Imagine you are an ultra-high net worth individual. You purchase a legendary national newspaper for $300 million. In year one, your total operational cost to run the paper, pay the journalists, print the physical copies, and manage the digital platform is $150 million. Your annual revenue from digital subscriptions, remaining print ads, and events comes out to $120 million. That means you are running a net loss of $30 million a year. On a purely financial spreadsheet, this looks like a disaster. If you look at a standard 10-year payback period, you have sunk $300 million into the purchase, lost another $300 million in operational deficits, and made zero profit. You are down $600 million. But now, let us look at your primary business, the tech conglomerate worth $200 billion. By owning that prestigious, loss-making newspaper, you have successfully shifted the public narrative around your company's aggressive market practices. You have cultivated personal relationships with prime ministers and presidents who crave your paper's endorsement. You have successfully deterred regulators from pursuing an antitrust lawsuit that would have broken up your conglomerate and cost you $50 billion. Suddenly, that $30 million annual loss doesn't look like a deficit anymore. It looks like the cheapest, most effective regulatory insurance policy money can buy. It is a masterclass in strategic capital allocation. You see, the average person looks at a newspaper and sees a dying medium, a relic of a bygone era struggling to survive in a digital world.